It's time now for our Bulldog conversation. Brad Rodisi back with you, and I'm joined by Dr. Stephen Chu, the chair of our psychology department here at Samford University. He's also a Carnegie U.S. Professor of the Year. Dr. Chu, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you've done some fascinating work on teaching and learning, writing about it, talking about it, and recently an article in Inside Higher Ed. Just walk us through that article. Give us the cliff notes of what you're arguing and what's really happened in the field of teaching and learning.
Teaching and learning is going through a real revolution right now. There's been a huge amount of research in the last 20 years on how people learn and sort of trying to tailor teaching to what we know about, like the constraints of the brain and how the brain learns best. And a lot of that research isn't really filtering down to the frontline teachers or the students. So what I've really been trying to do is to take this information and put it in a form that teachers can actually use to improve their teaching, and then also put it in a form that students can use so they can actually make sure that their study habits are the most effective possible.
And I don't know if it's as simple as saying what's the number one tip on how to learn or how to teach. Is there something that's simplistic that someone can try to employ or look for?
Well, that's a great point, Brad. And the answer to that is actually no.
Right. Yeah.
You can't simplify teaching. There's an old saying by a guy named Parker Palmer that great teaching can't be reduced to technique. So you can't say, I'll always do this and I'll always be effective. So teaching is a matter of adaptation. So you have a group of students who comes in. Each group of students is unique. Every teacher knows that. And so each class you have creates their own norms and have their own characteristics, and the teacher has to adapt their presentation style, the way they help, the way they will sort of make assignments, to tailor that to the particular class. And that's really what's critical. It's like, how does a teacher go about making that adaptation? Because they have to. Only really sort of ineffective teachers try to do the same thing over and over again and never make adaptation.
And kind of what are you seeing on the front lines as a teacher with students in a classroom on a daily basis? How much have they changed over the years?
They being the students?
The students.
Well, of course, technology has changed a lot, and so that has been both a blessing and a curse. They have a great deal of information at their fingertips, but they have many ways of distracting themselves also. So, and then a lot of the information they have available to them is not necessarily accurate, and so you have to kind of make them really savvy consumers of information. And you have to show them that knowing is different from having access to the information. So just knowing where to find it isn't the same as actually knowing and understanding the information. So it really has changed the way we teach.
In terms of keeping attention and attention spans, how they've changed because of the technology, the instant, I have to have everything right now. How is that affecting students, children, and teachers?
Yeah, that's a really complex question. So students can attend really well to certain things. I mean, people are not born with great attention spans, and so if they get bored, then the students have many sort of ways of distracting themselves. And the challenge to the teacher is not to let them get bored, and also to always keep in mind where the student's attention is. So when I give workshops to teachers, I tell them that a big part of teaching is attention management, knowing where your student's attention is, and being able to recognize if it's wandering, how do you bring it back together? And that's actually critical for students also. Once you recognize that your attention is wandering, you've got to sort of refocus back on your studying, or you just simply are not making the most of your study time.
Speaking of studying, you have an extremely successful YouTube series, How to Get the Most Out of Studying, 2+ million views. When you created it, I think almost 6 or 7 years ago now, did you ever think it would be this big?
No, not at all. When it reached 1,000 views, I was just ecstatic. That was 5 times the number that people predicted
Right.
would see it. I knew there was a need for it, and I knew that students would find the information useful. And it's really been gratifying to see how it's been well received by both teachers and students, both. So I hope I've contributed. If I had. I tell my wife if I actually had like financial savvy, I wouldn't have gone to academic. I wouldn't have been a teacher. That's right. So,
well, good deal. Dr. Stephen Chu, the chair of our psychology department here at Samford, talking a little teaching and learning. You've been listening to the Bulldog Conversation.